In 1999, a rapper called BG released a song that still has significant cultural impact to this day. But BG was never meant to record that song. The song was written by a collection of artists from the Cash Money Records label. It was meant to be recorded by the Big Timers. Instead, producer and co-writer Manny Fresh, whose real name is the far more regal-sounding Byron Thomas, decided to give the track to BG. Manny Fresh believed that BG's street credibility would help to better sell the song, and that was a good instinct. Without Manny Fresh handing the song to BG, and without Manny Fresh having written the very impactful chorus of this song, I would never be able to describe these IEMs to you. And that's because that song and these earphones are both the same. They're both bling bling. So if you're into understated and subtle looking IEMs, the Acoustic Audio VSA Max and SPA Silver Snake Limited Edition are not for you. Wear these outside in the sun and you're likely to blind every creature in a 500 meter radius. Wear them inside and you'll probably reduce your power bill by being able to turn a whole lot of the lights off in your house. Before you can wear them though, you'll need to work out which one is which and which one you might like the sound of. And let's start with the biggest challenge in what I just said. Meet Zoe. Zoe is one of the team at Acoustic Audio. She's lovely, but I don't envy her job trying to keep track of all the different Acoustic Audio model names. The naming protocols of Acoustic Audio IEMs are all over the shop. And to be clear, Acoustic Audio did send me these IEMs. Zoe's the one that arranged it. But they have no influence over this video. And that's why I'm free to say that whilst I do think it is worth trying to find these IEM models, these two specific IEM models on the Acoustic Audio website, and especially one of these two pairs, you need to be prepared for a little bit of confusion. Actually, probably a fair bit of confusion. For example, I have here the SPA IEMs. They're also known as the Silver Angels. And in the first 12 products listed on the Acoustic Audio product page, 7 of them are variants of the SPA. As it turns out, the one that I have here is the Silver Snake Limited Edition version, but it took me quite a while to work that out. The other IEMs they sent me are called the VSAs. These seem to also be known as the Void Silver Stalkers. And on the first page of products on the Acoustic Audio website, there are 4 variants of these. The ones I have here, as it turns out, are the VSA Max alternative. These VSA Max IEMs retail for about $159 US, and the SPA Silver Snake that I had in my hand a moment ago retails for about $430 US. Both use single dynamic drivers inside their shells, and both have a titanium diaphragm on that single dynamic driver. Both share some very positive similarities, but they also have significant differences that we'll talk about in a moment. I met Zoe at the end of the Shenzhen International Audio Show. And by that stage, I was all audioed out. I didn't really want to listen to any more IEMs, but I had promised earlier that I'd come and check out their range. I'd also decided that I wasn't going to accept any more IEMs for review from the show. But when I heard the Acoustic Audio, or EA from now on, when I heard the range of EA IEMs, something consistently impressed me about all of their models. They all had this one common characteristic that I think is a fantastic trait for IEMs. And that is that every one of the IEMs of theirs that I listened to at the Shenzhen Audio Show delivered a fantastic sense of feel or clarity or impact, whatever you want to call it. And what I mean by that is it's both the impact or punchiness of the bass down low, but also the sense of articulation in the upper frequencies of sound as well. And I believe that's going to largely come down to their use of a high quality titanium dome dynamic driver, not just the same driver in all models, they have differences between the models, but I think that's where the sense of feel is coming from. And to clarify what I mean about them using different drivers, although they are all titanium dome, at least the ones I've looked into, In the case of the VSA Max here, this uses a dome that is full titanium. So that's the center of the dome and the surround of the dome. It starts off as a plastic dome, but then it all has a titanium coating applied to the top. And that's going to do things like alter the resonance characteristics of the driver, make it more rigid. A lot of benefits can come from coating a driver in various metals. If we then think about the more expensive SPA Silver Snake, that actually uses a driver with titanium in the center of the dome, but then the surround of that dome is using a material referred to as silicon crystal. None of this really tells us anything about how they're going to sound, but it does tell us that they're distinctly different IEMs on the inside. Their components are different, and therefore we should expect the sound to be different, and it is. As I've already covered off, these are both extremely blingy on the faceplates, especially the VSA Max. But going beyond that, they're also very unique when you look at the shells of each IEM. Rather than the simple, smooth designs used by most IEM brands, the Acoustic Audio IEMs have deeply textured and characterful shells. Thankfully, it doesn't alter their comfort in any way. Both of these IEMs are very comfort for extended wear. What it does do, though, is make both of these IEMs some of the most unique looking designs that I've ever come across in this hobby. And before we split off and talk about the individual sound characteristics of both models, it's worth mentioning the accessories, which are very similar between both and both very, very good. Both IEMs come with silver-plated copper cables, and the cables themselves are generally a good feeling quality. They're nice and thick, they drape well, they just look and feel good. You've got the gold colouring from the SPA Silver Snake, or the silver colouring on the cable from the VSA Max. It's also worth noting that both cables have interchangeable plugs at the amplifier end, so you can have a 3.5mm or a 4.4mm termination, depending on what your amp needs. Now personally, I'm not a fan of using silver-plated copper in cables for audio, but that's just me, and I know some other people love it. We should also quickly mention the range of tips available with both IEMs, and again it's the same for both. You get 2 sets of tips, there's 3 sizes in each set, and the 2 sets will allow you some range of tuning for the different IEMs, with a slightly larger or narrower bore through the middle of the tips. And now, if we just turn our focus only to the VSA Max here, this is an IEM you need to approach with caution. After all, according to the marketing, the titanium diaphragm cuts sound with quantum precision in a 1.6 Tesla magnetic field. Apparently, the VSA Max is not an earphone, but a murder weapon for female drug addicts. It uses the paranoia of the frequency response curve to declare the mediocrity of equalization. Let me know in the comments if you know what that means, because I'm stumped. I can tell you what I hear though, and I still think you need to approach these with a little bit of care based on what I've heard. These are a very nice sounding IEM, but only if you like a V-shaped tuning with a significantly emphasized treble. Their clarity and articulation is excellent, and staging is strong for an IEM at this price. They are pretty close to sounding great to my ears, and I love that sense of feel that I touched on earlier. But the VSA Max do get just a bit too aggressive up top for my tastes and my tolerances. On a track like Some Like It Hot, the horns are wonderfully crisp with a good sense of attack, and I mean attack in a good way here. Unfortunately, I found that the cymbals became too splashy due to their tuning, and it meant that the cymbals dominated the track and took away from the rest of the mix. Underneath all that though, vocals are excellent, they've got good focus and good tonality, and so it is a shame to me that the level of emphasis from the VSA Max into their treble and the amount of aggressiveness that it creates in their sound does detract from the overall tonal balance and overall listening experience if you're anything like me. At one point, I did try to tame the treble on the VSA Max by swapping over to the pure copper Effect Audio Aries S Mark II cable, and that copper cable did bring a little bit more weight to the mid-range of the VSA Max. That allowed me to turn down the volume a little bit while still enjoying the same sense of general presence and weight in the music, but unfortunately it didn't fix the treble enough to overcome what I see as over-enhancement in that area when we're talking about the VSA Max. As I said before, if you like bright, crispy, and detailed treble, you're going to love the VSA Max. But if you don't like bright, crispy, and enhanced treble, these are not the IEM for you. On the other hand though, the SPA Silver Snake might be the IEM for you. It's still a V-shaped tuning overall, and it's actually got a little bit less bass than the VSA Max, but the treble is smoother and it balances out the overall sound better, in my opinion. As Ear Acoustic Audios say in their marketing, mellowness is a highly sophisticated form of force. And that one does make a bit more sense to me. The SPAs have much less sense of emphasis in the upper registers than the VSAs do. And whenever I'm referring to the SPAs and the VSAs in this video, I always mean the VSA Max and the SPA Silver Snake. As I said, there's lots of different variants of both models. I haven't heard the other variants of these models, and so I'm only talking about the ones I specifically have here. And looking at the graph of these VSAs and these SPAs that I've got on my desk, the perceptual differences as you listen to them are greater than what the graph would suggest. The measurement of the SPAs shows a drop in the treble measurements at around about the 5 kHz mark, but they sound far more controlled in the treble across the board. Staging, imaging, and separation of sounds are still excellent from the SPAs, just as they are from the VSA Max, but with the SPAs, that overall sense of soundstage is more open and more spacious. The specific imaging and the overall sense of the width and depth of the soundstage is about the same, but the sense of space around all the sounds is better. The sense of openness as a result is also better. And thinking about the measurements again, the reduced bass in terms of measured bass from the SPAs compared to the VSAs isn't as significant as the measurements might suggest. In other words, it doesn't stand out that the SPAs are a reduced bass tuning compared to the VSAs. If you compare them directly, you can hear that there's a bit less bass from the SPAs. But because of their smoother tonality, and particularly their more refined treble presentation, they sound like a more balanced and smoother overall IEM, and therefore you don't miss that bit of extra bass. To my ears, the overall tonal balance of the SPAs is better than that from the VSAs. They are still a slightly V-shaped tuning, not as predominant as what you hear from the VSAs, but they're just a bit fuller and smoother throughout the range. Again, mostly because the treble's pulled back in terms of the sense of emphasis or excess clarity, you could call it. Basically, the VSA Max is not for me and people that hear IEMs in the way that I do, but the SPA Silver Snake is very enjoyable. So enjoyable, in fact, that I decided to compare it to another IEM that I was super impressed with recently in the Tipsy Audio M5 IEMs. The M5s focus the image more tightly in the center of the soundstage, and then they spread the rest of the sounds out around you in a more spherical nature or a more spherical way. It's a more immersive experience listening to the M5s as opposed to the larger, wider, and less rounded soundstage from the SPAs. And in fact, it was so different going between these two that at first I thought maybe I'd accidentally swapped the left and right channels as I plugged in the IEMs to their cables, but I hadn't. Overall, both IEMs do sound great, they're just quite different. The SPA is highly detailed, to the point that it might be over-enhancing things a little bit. Not as much as the VSAs, but probably still a little bit over-enhancing. Having said that, the vocals were wonderfully focused and well separated from the mix, and the SPAs brought Billy Thorpe's vocals out in front in Marrakesh, while the guitars were spread out to be in the left and the right ear. The bass and drums were pretty close to where Billy Thorpe's positioned in the stage, and that meant that overall it's almost like the SPAs create 3 distinct zones in the soundstage. There's a center zone, a right zone, and a left zone. The M5s, on the other hand, did things quite differently. They don't emphasize the treble, but they still have extreme articulation and clarity at the price. Their bass doesn't hit as hard as the titanium driver in the SPAs. But I felt like the sense of texture and control of the bass from the M5s was a little stronger than from the SPAs. As it turns out, the recording of Marrakesh by Billy Thorpe can get a bit forceful on both of these IEMs. And that's especially if you choose the wrong source device. As I spent time with both of the Ear Acoustic Audio IEMs, I found that both of them really benefited from a richer, smoother source device. On the other hand, the Tipsy Audio M5s are pretty device agnostic. They're not going to sound bad from anything, but again, you might choose to tune them a little bit or change their character based on the sources that you prefer. As I listen more to the M5s and the SPAs, all from the Mojo 2 at this point, the M5s also revealed a slightly better textured and separated vocal from the mix compared to the SPAs. And so the SPAs maybe deliver a bit more fun, thanks to their more energetic, dynamic and punchy sound. But that fun did come at the expense of some refinement when compared to the M5s. So it's going to come down to what you prioritize. How I would decide is that if I were monitoring or analyzing music from a more critical point of view, I would want the Tipsy Audio M5s. That's also true if I want something that's a little bit less energetic or forceful even. If it's just about pure fun and you're happy to go with a more energetic and slightly over-enhanced tuning, then the SPA Silver Angels are a lot of fun. Sorry, SPA Silver Angel Silver Snake Limited Editions are lots of fun. I think both the VSA Max and the SPA Silver Snake are worth considering if you like V-shaped tunings, and it's going to depend on your budget, the source you're plugging it into, and of course your tastes. As I said at the beginning, both of them have bucket loads of feel, articulation and punch, and that can be amazing fun to listen to. And so I'll put some links in the description down below where you can go through and check out these particular models, or the 73 other variants of each of these models. And yes, I am exaggerating there. So check out the links in the description down below. But if you also need a device to plug these into to help tame their treble and create some really fantastic sound as a result, I've pinned a video here at the end that you're definitely going to want to watch next. And for now, peace, love and music, and I'll see you soon.